So it's the news for the week of the 31st of Halloween.
31st, dude,
I'll say the
yeah.
week of Halloween.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have any spooky news?
We could just say the titles in like a spooky voice. Netflix's Witches recast.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the news for the week of Halloween. Woo! Or, October 31st, as it's known. I'm joined again by Maxie. Maxie, hello.
Boo.
Ooh, yeah, oh, you're getting festive with your catchphrase.
Spooky.
That's really spooky. All right. Well,
Yeah, look, I'm sorry. Anybody who just jumped just then, I apologize. Maybe I'll put like a jump scare warning.
welcome to the news. We've got some good articles this week. Let's just jump into talking about something that everyone has been talking about on Twitter and in streams and social media in general, and that's the fact that Henry Cavill's leaving The Witcher.
I'm sad, obviously. I think that he kind of made the show as successful as it was. Netflix announced it via the official website that he's out as Geralt of Rivia with Liam Hemsworth recast as the Witcher protagonist. I understand maybe the choice of a Hemsworth, but did you have to pick the worst one?
It's the worst one. Yeah, it's the worst possible thing. And
no shade to Liam Hemsworth. You know, he's done some pretty cool stuff. He's been in some pretty cool movies, but I don't think I've seen him at the forefront of everything. So giving him...
I forgot he existed.
That's right. You know, there's a third Hemsworth that nobody ever talks about.
He lives in the shadow of his brother, and they have another brother that lives in the shadow of those two. Dang.
Yeah, look, I think that it got built up. I think the show got built up so much because Henry Cavill was such a fan of the games, right?
Yeah, he's a huge fan of the games. He had played through all three of them. He's read the books. He knows the writer. He genuinely wanted to be the best Geralt. And I remember when he was first talking about being selected for the role, and they showed him off. He talked about how, he wanted to be the character, and he's been a super huge proponent of keeping to the canon, to the point where he's been at odds with Netflix and a lot of the writers who think they're better than the actual person who wrote the Witcher base canon information and the books. And so one of his core things was, if you're going to change the canon of the series, if you're going to start taking liberties, I'm out, because I respect the core stuff way too much. And that's honestly what it looks like is happening, is that the writers of Netflix, as you mentioned to me previously, Maxie, were talking shit about the actual, books and the actual lore and the games themselves and everything. And there was a lot of people at odds, and it's a shame. And it looks like he's walking out because he's not doing it for the money.
Well, according to the writer and producer Beau DeMayo, he was quoted as saying that he's been on shows, namely The Witcher, where some of the writers were not fans or actively disliked the books and the games, even actively mocking the source material. It's kind of a recipe for disaster and bad morale. Fandom, as a litmus test, checks egos and makes all the long nights worth it. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy. So he was quoted as saying that was actively happening in the writing rooms. I'm sorry, my nose got blocked there. He was quoted as actively saying that the writers were making fun of the source material in the writing room. And if you're Henry Cavill, someone who sees a project that he's incredibly passionate about, like you said, 1,700 hours across 3 games is no laughing matter. He was obviously a fan. And so to go in and day out and be laughed at about something you're passionate about, I'm not surprised that in the end he walked away, especially after a year or so ago, him saying that he would be down for 7 seasons of The Witcher if Netflix would let him. So I don't think this was a his choice thing. I don't think that he just turned around one day and said, look, I'm not interested in playing the character anymore. I genuinely think there's some issues with the writing, and he wasn't a fan. And that makes me even more nervous about where season 4 will be going, if that's the case. I'm kind of not even interested in watching season 3 because I don't really want him to get that much attention. Because if you're going to take the person out who helped your show gain the success that it has, it is on his back.
It is absolutely on his back, for sure. And he's the pillar holding up the whole show. And don't get me wrong, we talked about it. The writing in the show is really good. The general prop design, the whole show is just superb in its production value. But people went to watch it because they wanted to see how Henry Cavill was going to play as Geralt. And he's just absolutely nailed it. And it's so rare to watch a show that's based on a book series in a video game that gets it so perfect, because I've heard a lot of criticism of the show, and for the most part, most people love it and really enjoy it. But you know, part of the criticism was, oh, well, we're going to be worried that, oh, it's not going to match up. It's not going to be what it is in the video games. But I've not heard anybody actually say that he doesn't make a good Geralt. I don't think I've heard any take on that saying that he's a bad Geralt. And like you said, I don't think a Hemsworth is going to be able to do it, Maxi. Next up on the news, a real life Amsterdam hotel that has been basically remade in Call of Duty. The Conservatorium is very upset that a lot of people are being shot and dying in their lobby, which is unfortunate. And it looks like they might be taking legal action against Activision Blizzard for putting their hotel in a violent video game. Do you think their lawsuit would be founded if they were to go through with this?
I just think, why couldn't it have been the highway? Why couldn't someone have an issue with the highway map, man? Look, I think that their concerns are very understandable. You know, they've said that they're incredibly displeased with their inclusion in the latest Call of Duty. They're apparently seeking legal action and just figuring out what their next step's going to be. But yeah, if you created a 5-star location for people to come and relax, and you were trying to get that name as a place for people to go and relax and have a comfortable stay, and then some punk-ass video game just drops a bunch of soldiers in the middle of your lobby and lets them kill each other over and over again, knowing full well that all the footage that you see of this hotel online is just going to be kids screaming slurs at each other and shooting guns.
Obviously, yeah.
I can understand why the Conservatorium would be like, you know what, maybe this isn't great for our image.
Yeah, they're mostly upset that the architecture was pretty much copied almost one for one. And there is a video that we'll have on screen that shows like the one-to-one comparisons, and there's a lot of pictures of it. But I get it. And it's honestly the gall of taking a real life place and copying it almost one-to-one and then just renaming it and then putting it in a video game without or asking for permission or doing anything. It's just kind of messed up. And it's different when it's like a public place or something that is owned by like the public government or whatever, or like a real world location like the Eiffel Tower, things like that. Like, you know, obviously big landmarks that have been in tons of movies and games already. But to take a specific hotel that has a specific reputation that caters to a specific clientele and essentially have like a renamed ISIS fighting the US military in the lobby of the hotel, you know, it's not going to go over well. So I get it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the map get deleted, because I think when it comes push to shove, I don't think that Activision Blizzard is going to want this to get into court, because this can also set precedent. Especially in Europe and all those places in the EU, because in the United States, the US government sued Activision Blizzard for using the Humvee and a few other things, and they ended up like getting it fixed and dealt and done with.
Who knows if they're just going to make changes to the architecture, or maybe they'll remove the map entirely. I don't think there's enough maps that are in the game at the moment for them to be removing things, but who knows what they're going to do, and hopefully both parties are happy with the result. The Callisto Protocol has been cancelled in Japan after the developers refused to make ratings board changes. So, the Callisto Protocol, the goopy space horror game from former Dead Space developers, has been cancelled in Japan following a thumbs down from the country's computer entertainment rating organization. In a statement they posted on Twitter, the game's team has said that it's going to cancel the game's Japanese release entirely rather than make the changes that are necessary. They tweeted out in Japanese that the Callisto Protocol's Japanese version has been discontinued. At present, it cannot pass the 0 rating, before going on to say the team decided to make 0's required changes would not provide the experience players expected. What do you think? Do you think this is disappointing for Japanese fans, or is it not that big of a deal?
I think it's disappointing for them, but the problem obviously isn't with the developer, it's with their government. And these sorts of things can be voted for and changed through loud, vocal efforts to get these things changed. And I say good on the devs for not bending to the Japanese government for not wanting them to do this. Because if you have an artistic vision and you have a game that needs to be a very specific way to provide the experience that you want, that's hand tailored, having to take everything out for the sake of being allowed to release in a country, it takes a lot of balls to basically be like, oh, yeah, no, the money's not worth it because we'd rather maintain our vision. So good on them. And again, that's not their fault. I don't think it's their fault at all. I think it's definitely Ciro's issue. And of course, we live in the age where you can just throw a VPN up and buy it in another country anyway if you absolutely want to play it. So really no restrictions on being able to get it. Now, that being said, there are restriction locks on PlayStation 5s based on where you buy them. They are region locked. Sony is very, very, very strict about region locking their products. Same with Nintendo. So I
Yeah.
don't doubt we'll see a workaround, but yeah, it kind of sucks.
And look, censoring parts of video games is not odd. Back in 2021, I believe, Rainbow Six ended up self-censoring a lot of the game's content in all regions in anticipation for a China release. So they were removing skulls and blood and drugs and all that kind of stuff from the game because they knew that China would give it a harsher rating or would let it get rated at all. So this isn't the first time something like this has happened, but I'm not sure how many massive... Because Callisto Protocol is a AAA title, right?
Yeah, and it's also a very bloody AAA title. Like, it's been marketed super hard as being bloody. So I don't like game censorship in games. China is a huge issue, 100%. China, everyone knows that watches this show that we don't like the Chinese government. Maxie and I think they're assholes. And they are assholes. The whole government of China is the asshole. But they did the same thing to World of Warcraft when Blizzard had to release World of Warcraft into China. They had to remove all the bones and all the
Not
blood.
me living in a country where China is our biggest ally, wondering when the nuke is going to hit my apartment after you fucking say that.
Yeah, whatever. Screw them. But hey, you know, it is what it is. I don't like it. I don't think that any of that should be changed. I honestly hate when every other region's editions of a game gets changed because of a single country. I think that's dumb as hell. So good on them for standing their ground and just being like, yeah, we're not changing our whole game. Screw you. We'll just not sell it in your country, and that'll be that. Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which is the code name for the Dragon Age, and we don't know if they're going to change the title or anything like that, but I guess that might be the final working title. Who knows? Is now playable from start to finish. We are getting another Dragon Age game. Maxie, I don't know. Have you played all the Dragon Age games? We won't talk about 2 because it doesn't exist. But
I haven't played any of the Dragon Age games, actually.
Well, they're awesome, and a lot of people are huge fans of them, Maxie. Dragon Age 1 and Dragon Age Origins pretty much set the definition of what an RPG was going to be going forward. It's one of those games that people look back at just like KOTOR. It took what KOTOR was and it just made it a lot more improved. And a lot of people compare a lot of current generation RPGs like, you know, Pathfinder stuff back to Dragon Age Origins. And so it's good to see that another game's coming out. The last one they released was Dragon Age Inquisition, which was pretty solid. They've had a bumpy road in the past with Dragon Age 2 being an absolutely horrible game that never should have come out, but it's looking like it's getting where it needs to be, and everybody seems to be happy with it in development, and the people that are speaking for it are super pumped. Now, they're saying that there's still a really long way to go before it crosses the finish line, but the game is playable from start to finish in alpha testing. I am applying to test this game in alpha, which I won't be able to talk about either way, but it's good to see that it's chugging along, and it looks like it's on track to being a good title coming out sometime in the next few years. They're super pumped about the story. They're really pumped about the characters. They're really pumped about everything and anything that's in the game, the combat, the DNA of the Dragon Age series, all that stuff being stories about people and pushing it further than ever before. I'm excited for it. I hope that EA doesn't screw it up, but honestly, EA's kind of fallen out of the picture the last like 2 or 3 years, right? Activision Blizzard has just been taking all the hits and getting punched in the face and doing all these horribly controversial things. EA really hasn't kind of stood out as a problem recently, have they?
EA kind of fucking being a little bit quiet lately. The biggest concern that they have at the moment, and probably something they're focusing on, is the issue with FIFA. You know what I mean? Like they've got so much on their plate in terms of, well, they've lost FIFA, so they're making their own EA Sports soccer game or whatever. Yeah, really, that and the fact that Sims 4 just recently went free to play, EA really been kind of quiet. I wonder what's going on there. Maybe something big is on the horizon.
They lost part of the Star Wars license too. I think Disney said that they were going to get other companies to do Star Wars games as well on top of EA. They lost the exclusivity on that. And then with losing FIFA, yeah, maybe they're just like reeling. Also, remember we talked about EA possibly being bought out by Microsoft or a couple of other companies coming up in the future. So I have no clue. It's cool to know that they're still developing games and that Dreadwolf is still going. Same with the next Mass Effect and a few other things through BioWare. But I'm going to be skeptical just because EA's last few titles they released was Battlefield 2042 and that was not great. And then before that, you know, we had a lot of other issues in the past. They released things like Hardline. They did make Battlefront 1 and 2, and those were horrible at launch. So I don't know, but they did, to their credit, Inquisition was good. If they just keep Inquisition's model and they just improve on it, maybe go back to that like turn-based RPG thing that everyone loves, it could be awesome. And so I'm being hopeful, but I wanted to let Dragon Age fans know that they are actually working on another one, and it is now playable, and we'll probably hear a lot more for it coming up in the future.
Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life is finally getting a PC remake. The most iconic Harvest Moon game is getting a new lease on life with modern visuals, characters, and other upgrades for PC. I am so excited for this. I'm actually a massive Harvest Moon fan. I got introduced to Harvest Moon when I was like 13 or something in high school. I had a friend who was like, you got to play this game. It's so fun. And it was so different to all the other games that I played. Everything that I played was kill this dude, shoot that guy, jump over this thing. Harvest Moon was just like a nice little relaxing thing. And A Wonderful Life is honestly one of the best in the franchise. It was originally released, it was originally announced during a Nintendo Direct in September that the remake was happening, but to actually finally know that like this is happening, there's a new trailer, I'm so excited. Are you a fan of Harvest Moon?
I gotta be honest with you, Maxie, I don't even know what Harvest Moon is, but after doing some preliminary research, my mans, I can see that it's kind of like a Stardew Valley, but third person. Or Animal Crossing, and so I get it now. I
think both of those things. Think like Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing, but with like larger RPG or role playing elements. Like it is just Stardew Valley, but a little bit more fleshed out and a little a cuter art style.
Okay,
but it's one of those games that you just it just makes me happy. Does that make sense?
It's a feel-good game. Yeah, no, absolutely.
It is. It's just like playing, and there's no like, it's not competitive. Nothing really like makes you mad or frustrated. Like it's just you switch it on. You know, you play around. It's got beautiful music, and the visuals are so nice, and cutscenes look great, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, sometimes there's like a little overarching story, but nothing too crazy. I definitely think if you've never played Harvest Moon before, but you're a massive Stardew Valley fan or an Animal Crossing fan, I think I'd 100% recommend getting into it, because I don't think I've played a Harvest Moon game that was bad. And I'm talking about like the Game Boy games
I've played
as well.
an Animal Crossing that was bad though. Oh man, the New Horizons was not. There's a lot of bad. Don't play that.
Don't get me started on New Horizons, dude. I'm not. With that, that's going to be the end of the news for today. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. What else? Fuck. What else do I say?
You got to tell people to comment on something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird being the person who ends the news, because usually you would be like, Max, you always give someone a comment. So, Del, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, dude. What do you want people to comment on today's video?
I want everyone to comment on whether or not you think that the new person, who I already forgot, Liam Hemsworth, is going to be a good Geralt replacement or not. And if you're angry about the fact that Henry Cavill has been pushed off of The Witcher, I want you to tell me how angry you are. There's going to be like a scale. I want a 1 to 10, 1 being like, you know, whatever, you're super happy, you continue, you don't care either way, and then 10 being like you just walked through a room full of Legos barefoot.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want the manifesto in the comments, you know what I mean? Like I want to know exactly how outraged you are, what your plans are, when you're going to be staking out the offices of The Witcher. I'm cutting all this.
No, you've committed. Yeah, you've committed to it, but do you want me to save you and cap it off?
This will be the kind of shit that like gets quoted in a news article 2 years from now.
Well, you know, hey, leave that comment. And anyway, I'm going to bail you out, Maxie. Hey, thanks for watching the news. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And until the next video, this is Maxie and Delrith, and we'll be seeing you. Bye.
Bye. I shouldn't have used the word manifesto.